A human being is not a person because he is a human being, but because rights and duties have been ascribed to him. Specifically, the person is that legal subject or substance of which the rights and duties are attributes. But not all humans are persons, as was the case in Old England when there were slaves. Black's Law Dictionary, 3rd edition.
You are born to beauty.
One of the biggest problems many people seem to have is understanding exactly what a person is. Now, I've stated before that you aren't a person, you have a person. And in order to understand what I mean, I ask that you look at the meaning of the word person and the assumptions that it's resting upon, the implications it creates. Historically, a person was a mask, refers to a personage, and it was what people wore when they were on stage. Now this is very important because if you come to, say, a masquerade party and you're wearing a mask and you're in my party, then I can pretty much assume that you're my guest and you have agreed to act within certain parameters. Some people think that they can enter into an agreement with their person, or as they refer to it, their straw man. The courts have recently held that that's not in fact possible. It would be very much like me entering into an agreement with my mask. The mask is evidence of a person, or let's, for the purpose of this demonstration, this mask is the person. It's a legal fiction. It exists so that others can interact with me, and so that they have evidence of my consent to their governance. That's why you can't enter into a relationship, into an association with your mask. Your person isn't something which exists in association with you so much. It is something that exists because of an association that exists between you and other people. And saying that you're going to copyright your name, or secure your person, or redeem your person, to me doesn't make much sense. Either you're in a relationship, in an association, and thus you have a certain body of rights and duties, or you are not in that relationship and you are free of those duties and you have no claim to the rights or benefits. People have tried to act as agent for their person in court, and it has failed repeatedly.
Many people have what I believe to be seriously erroneous beliefs concerning what a person is. They believe it was created by the government, that it exists completely distinctly from them, that they can seize it, perhaps redeem it, or enter into agreements with it. I do not see how that is legally possible. Your person is that thing which exists because of a relationship between you and another party. It identifies your rights and your freedoms and your duties and obligations within that relationship. I don't see how you can enter into a relationship or into a contract with something that exists because you're in a contract with someone else. Suppose a man and a woman get married. They become husband and wife. Now the man then decides that he wants to enter into a relationship, an agreement with the husband. And then he goes out and he has sex outside of marriage. And the woman, the wife, comes and angrily asks him, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he says, "Well, it wasn't the husband who was cheating on you, it was the man." Is that possible? Does that make any sense? I don't think so. Your person identifies you essentially as a child of the province. Attempting to enter into an agreement with it and going to your nanny and saying, "Look, I'm in agreement with this thing which identifies me as one of your children," it merely confirms the fact that you are acting like a child. Your person is considered to be a benefit. And I guess if you're choosing to live your life irresponsibly, it might actually be one. However, if you accept the benefits, you're bound to bear the burdens. And to refuse to bear the burdens because you enter into an agreement with the legal entity that exists because of an association between you and the people who take care of you, it does not make lawful sense Furthermore, I believe this has already been looked at and judicially reviewed by some courts, and they found that the human being and the person are entangled to such a degree that you cannot enter into a relationship with it. You need two separate parties to contract. And although you have a person, and this person is not you, it exists separately from you in that you can disassociate from it. But if you are associated with it, that's it, you're associated, and that person, which you point to, is evidence of a relationship, not between you and the person, but you and the people in the government. If you choose to wear what they consider to be essentially diapers, and then write on these diapers, "My property," the fact that you've written on those diapers, "My property," in no way changes the fact that you're still wearing diapers, and they will get to treat you as if you're wearing diapers. Imagine for a moment you go to a concert and you get a wristband, and they have different wristbands. One wristband allows you access upper levels only. Another wristband allows you access lower levels. Third wristband allows you access backstage. These are three separate rights and duties with certain obligations associated with it. You're the human being wearing the wristband. Can you enter into an agreement with your wristband that would change what the security people are going to allow you to do? If you were wearing a wristband that says you have access to the upper levels, can you write on it, "Oh, Rod, the man wearing it says backstage is okay," and then suddenly end up backstage? Obviously not. Your person is very much like that wristband. It's not you, but it does identify your rights, your duties, your obligations, your benefits, your burdens. It does not identify you, the human being. You cannot enter into a relationship or an agreement with it because it evidences an agreement between you, the human being, and other human beings. You can, however, disassociate from it and thus become a free man on the land.
Heidi, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a little chat about people and their persons. Now let's suppose you're a human being and your name is John Adam Doe. First of all, I think we can all agree that your parents really lacked any sort of imagination, and I feel sorry for you. Might make identifying your body very difficult. However, let's suppose this is your true name. You're a living, breathing human being, and we start right there. This is the name that is found on the record of live birth or in your family Bible. Now, John Adam Doe here, at some point, decides to engage in certain activities. Now, these activities, let's say he gets a social insurance number, he applies for one, through an active application. He opens up an account with the Canada Revenue Agency, and this is the name on it. Now he has, by his own action, engaged in application, and now he has accepted certain rights and duties. Now let's suppose also he goes and he gets a driver's license. He applies for that, and now he has certain rights and duties under that driver's license, and again, it's always through an active application, submission of application on your part. He joins the Army, and they decide to give him the name Doe J.A., and that's what they use. Let's say he needs a hunting license. So he gets one, again through the active application. Let's say he gets a health club membership card, and he uses the name John Doe on that. So now you have a human being who has certain rights and duties. And as you can see, with every different spelling of the name, you have a different body of rights and duties. And it is
how to operate as a creditor, as a sovereign.
Now, with this whole creditor and debtor thing, I see a bit of a problem with it. Certainly no one wants to be a debtor. And a lot of people then say, well, if being a debtor is bad, being a creditor must be good. And they assume these are the only two options. Yet, without sounding like a Bible thumper, I've learned a whole lot about the law by looking at the teachings of Jesus Christ. The man knew the law. And his advice was to be neither debtor nor creditor. And therefore there must be another option. And looking at it, I mean, what is our goal here, folks? I like to say that we're looking for peace and abundance. Now here, if what we're looking at, let's look at it, we want peace and abundance. If you're the debtor, it might be difficult to get any of that. If you're the creditor, however, your abundance will always be a function of the debtor's ability and willingness to pay. And if he has neither, you have zero abundance. Now, what can a creditor, there's a big difference between a creditor and a debtor, and there's one fundamental thing a creditor can do in terms of a loan, which a debtor may not do. And what is that one thing that a creditor can do that a debtor cannot? Forgive. The creditor has the power of forgiveness on their side, and they can forget the loan or forgive the loan that exists between them, and now the debtor is no longer the debtor. Now, the real problem with being either of them, I see it, is that it does require you, if you're the creditor, you're placing a demand on your fellow man and you can't forgive it. If you're the debtor, then you've placed a burden on them without sharing one back. Is there someplace else, though? The big problem that I see is that all of our abundance, what people like the anti-terrorists there are talking about, they're talking about positioning yourself to be a creditor so that you can demand money. And they equate abundance with money. Now the problem with this is that the people who put the money in circulation can restrict the amount of money out there, thus create a situation where it's very difficult for the debtor to meet the demands of the creditor, and therefore neither of them enjoy any abundance. Being a creditor doesn't guarantee abundance when your abundance is a function of the amount of money in circulation and its value. Make all the demands you want. It doesn't mean anything past a certain point. So saying join the system, learn to be a creditor, to me, I think that's kind of wrong, because you're betting that your abundance will be a function of the amount of money available which you can demand from other parties. Now, what if there is, in fact, another source of abundance? Let's examine that. Because that's what it's about, abundance. If we have abundance and we don't have to fight over it, we'll get peace.
You guys who are planning on checking out of the system, my question to you is, how are you going to get your gas and your electricity and your water? These utility companies have a monopoly, and they refuse to contract with you on a private basis. They need your person to be able to give you those things, and you need your person to get them. So unless you're going to live in the forest and use the methane escaping from your dung heap.
Now, what I'd like you to do is imagine for a moment an island, an actual geographical area, say. Now, in this geographical area on this island, there is a house, and in the house, you have a parent and a child. Now, you also have another building over here, that's a shopkeeper. and the parent goes to the shopkeeper and engages in commerce. Now the child wants to go to the store and buy stuff for the house, but he needs permission from the parent in order to engage in commerce. This is essentially the situation as it exists now with the government. And what the anti-terrorist is suggesting is that if you do not stay in the house and maintain that child and ward relationship with the state, then you don't have a right to go engage in commerce and you should leave the island. And it's complete baloney. Because you can grow up and if you want, you can create your own house. You can be the adult in your own house. And you can go and engage in commerce whenever you want. You do not need this party's permission, and you do not have to obey the rules of this house, and you do not have to leave the island. This person that he refers to is the person that identifies you as a child of the state. But bear in mind, a person is that legal subject or substance of which the rights and duties are attributes. This guy right here, the kid, can in fact have a person, and that person will be deemed to be a ward of the state, and using their permission they can go and engage in commerce. It's all fine and dandy. But that child can also grow up, become a man, and do all of that all by himself without permission from this government state agent nanny. And he does in fact have a person. But his person is now on par or is equal with this adult and is not equal with the child. Let's suppose that this here represents the country and this here represents an estate in that country. People, when they, if they belong to a very rich families, they have a rich estate. When they grow up and they leave the house, some of the funds from that estate are still used, are still sent to him. He can collect it. And oftentimes it'll be in the form of a trust fund until he's maybe 30, at which point it transfers to him. The anti-terrorist position is the only way to go here and buy things is with their permission. And if you don't have their permission, you must leave the house. And you must leave the whole island, the town. You must go live out in the bush. I'm a free man on the land. I've got the right to engage in commerce. I'm not going to live out in the bush. And anything the child can do with permission of their nanny, of their their parent, this guy can do without any permission, just as lawfully. So his position that you should keep your person, otherwise you have to leave, otherwise you don't get the benefits of commerce, and you have to go live in the bush, all three of those points are completely wrong. The only thing that is affected is you won't be able to claim that this party here has a duty to feed you or put diapers on you, but nor will that party have the power to put diapers on you if you don't want them. A lot of people consider the person to be merely this child, and if you grow up, you're abandoning your person. But more likely, if you look in the criminal code and in certain other acts, you'll find that they refer to persons and classes of person. This guy right here, person. This guy, a person. This guy, a person. This guy, a person. But they all have different rights and duties. Your person doesn't necessarily, just because this guy says I'm a person and this guy says I'm a person too, doesn't mean they both have the same level of rights and duties. Because this guy's a person as a ward of the state. So yeah, he's a person, he has rights and duties. But his rights and duties, he's going to have less rights than this person over here. Some people seem to equate a person with a ward of the state. And a ward of the state is merely one class of person. Now, folks, here's the fundamental problem with the whole creditor-debtor thing. It doesn't shift where we are looking for our abundance. It's still looking at fiat currency, the creation of which we have very little control over. And then they think because now you're a creditor instead of a debtor, your demands are going to automatically be met and meet your needs and bring you abundance. And I don't think it's going to work. Now the problem with that, of course, is because people are equating their abundance with their access to resources. And this is a simple graph. This is what we're facing. The number of people is increasing, the number of resources are dwindling. And when we get past this point right here, we get into this area where the number of people and their needs is greater than the resources. That's what essentially is hell on earth. And the problem with that is not so much the number of people, but that those people believe their value and their abundance is a function of their access to the resources. What if there's another place to find abundance? Now, where would we find it if not the resources? How about this? How about we find our abundance in the people? If we find abundance in the people, and now I'm not saying use the people as a resource, a la Soylent Green, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, what if the abundance is actually a function of the people's creativity? Then you start to develop a situation where your abundance will be a function not of how much resources you have managed to withhold from your fellow man, but how much inspiration you have brought them to be creative. And when people get creative like that, they start to enjoy an abundance. And whether or not it's just learning to play music, whether or not it's learning to be creative with figuring out energy needs and ways to meet them. By focusing on increasing our fellow man's creativity, we will find all the abundance we need. It'll end up being where you have people where you go and you give them a potato and you teach them to cut it open and plant 4 pieces, and they get 50 pounds of potatoes out of it. They come to you saying, look, I've got extra potatoes. And that one you give them will come back to you 7-fold. When people start realizing that abundance should be a function of our creativity and not of our ability to monopolize resources, we can actually avoid this situation, because although the people will increase and the resources might necessarily dwindle, our ability to share and use the resources we have is what's going to save us. Okay, folks, so bear in mind what we're aiming for here is greater peace and abundance. So what this implies to me is that we must avoid conflict, and that means we must study how it comes about. Having looked at it rather extensively, I've come to the conclusion that just about all conflict is a result of one thing. And that is when one party feels that they have been denied something which is due. And that one thing is almost always dignity. Now, dignity, it can manifest in certain ways. Some people might know it as respect, honor, kindness, compassion. All of these have the effect of causing the recipient to feel a greater level of dignity, and they feel raised up. And almost all conflict is a result of one party feeling that they have been denied dignity due. Now, even when it comes to resources, if you're arguing about water, One party might feel, hey, I need water to live, and when you deny me water, you're denying me my right to live, and therefore you're denying me my dignity. Just about every conflict can be pointed, if you examine it, will lead back to someone being denied the dignity they felt was due. And it was done in such a manner that they felt fighting, conflict, and aggression was justified at that point. So if we want peace and abundance, we want to avoid conflict, what does this then necessarily imply? We have to increase the level of human dignity around those around us. If you want to avoid conflict, act with compassion, kindness, honor, and respect towards each other. You won't end up naturally in conflict, and you will be granting people the dignity that they feel is due. Now the trick, of course, is how do you do that? And again, you use any of these tools. Give them respect. Give them some honor. Give them some kindness. Give them some compassion. Merely be aware of their existence when they didn't expect you to be. And you'll be surprised at what can develop when you do that. Oh, and incidentally, I can talk about all these things, but that doesn't mean I'm an expert on it. I know I need a lot of work in being more patient and compassionate and treating people with the dignity they're due. But at least I'm working on it. Okay, folks, this lesson, you actually have two assignments. Because it's about people and it's about persons. Assignment number 1, I want you to distinguish all of your persons. Go through your wallets and grab all your identification cards. Make a little list of all of your persons. I want you to look at how you got it. Think back when you're looking at your driver's license, your hunting license, whatever one you're looking at. How did you get it? What steps were required? Why did you do that? Think back. What rights did you get out of that? Rights or privileges? What duties and obligations did you accept? And now that you know a little bit more about the law, what would some of your options have been? So that's assignment number 1. Do that with your rights. It's going to help you. It'll be important in the future. Lesson number 2, or assignment number 2, we're dealing with people. I want you to go out and I want you to give someone a dignity surprise. Show them some respect, some kindness, something that acknowledges that they are due dignity as a human being. Do that with no strings attached to it, and see how it makes you feel, how it empowers you, and watch how you will start to crack the well springs of abundance. But don't do it for the abundance, just do it to raise them up and to grant them the dignity that you feel that they are due as a human being. So those are your assignments for lesson 3.
I'll make sure this information